Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning into the In Now podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, and today I'm with Evan, a good friend of mine I've met on TikTok and another local entrepreneur for Upstate New York. How are you doing today, Evan?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me on this pod.
100%. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you spending some time with us and also being willing to answer some questions for us.
All right, let's do it, man.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, if you want to just tell me a little bit about what the studio is and what the intention of your animations and just Daydreaming Artwork Studios, what exactly the plan is.
So the name Daydreaming Artwork Studios is a name I had always been set on in terms of when I was going to start my business. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until earlier this year where I finally pulled the trigger and purchased my LLC.
Oh, very nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you're on the books as a business owner. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, I'm officially a business owner, and like now I put money to it, so I feel like now I have to produce.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a sole proprietorship myself, so I understand.
Yeah. But basically, it's an animation studio. We're focusing mostly in 2D hand-drawn animation because I feel like that's a dying medium.
I could agree with that.
In today's climate.
Yeah, I could agree with that for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just to me, it always just felt like I don't want to say truest form, but the
you could say
the root of animation has always been like 2D hand drawn.
That's true.
I kind of want to make projects that pay homage to that.
I can understand. That's actually, basically like the grandfather of all animation just came from the cell drawings. And I think to keep that alive, it's to bring the principles of animation forward to the modern day, from the 1800s when they initially started, the late 1800s. So
right.
Pretty impressive stuff, actually. If, everybody who's checking out this video right now, go check out Daydreaming Artwork Studios on YouTube, on TikTok, wherever else he is. He's got some pretty cool animations, actually. I just took a look at 2 or 3 of them before we got on this call here. It was one for Haitian Heritage Month, and the other one was, I forget the exact name. It was the fish, and it was like where the people in the fish are on like...
Oh, Native Sky.
Native Sky, yes. It was actually pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I could tell that you put a lot of time into not just the character design, not just the animations, but the overall story. Very cohesive work, and I could appreciate that because a lot of the times... not to discredit others, but when some people say, oh, I do X, Y, Z, I'm an animator or I'm an entrepreneur or whatever, it always takes, a second question to quite understand exactly the prevalence of that person's skill. So if it's just like, oh, I'm an animator, it's like, oh, what have you animated? Oh, no, I don't actually make stuff. It's like, well, okay. But for you, you're absolutely tried and true an animator. You make incredible work. I really do appreciate what you do. So I think the Haitian video, that was actually very creative. I like that. It was just very simple. I mean, as simple as it gets for, hand-drawn animation. But I thought it was pretty cool. So another question I have for you, I think you kind of already answered, but what exactly is the main goal with your production efforts? What do you hope to accomplish in the long term?
Could you repeat that? You cut off at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what is the main goal with your production efforts? What exactly is the be-all, end-all of your projects here?
I mean, the dream ever since I was 10 years old was always to be my own showrunner, create my own animated series.
Oh, wow.
And just be in a position where I'm able to do that as like my main source of income. And I feel like over time, the way I was going to reach that goal was slowly morphing just as I guess the social climate around me was changing as well. Because
sure.
As a kid, I used to say I want to be the Black Seth MacFarlane. When he was 25 years old, he was greenlit for Family Guy.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, 25 is young, and then you already have like this huge show. And
it's pretty impressive.
I'm now at 26 years of age, and I'm not exactly where he was at the time, but I've been learning that I have to carve out my own lane to get there.
That's true. And you know what they say, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, and I try not to compare my journey to everyone else's.
Right.
Because maybe if I had the same journey he had, I may not have enjoyed it as much. Like, who knows at the end of the day.
That's true. And I'm sure there's invisible struggles that he deals with that he thinks that maybe if things didn't go my way, that I could live an easier life in this regard. And, there's always things that we could say would be better or worse in circumstances. But I think at the very least that you've had a plan for so long, as you said, since you were 10. You said you wanted to be the Black Seth MacFarlane. That's actually hilarious. You're 26, I'm 25, so we probably graduated the same year as well. So, yeah, that was 2010, 2011, or 2009 for you.
Graduated from...
Oh, sorry, I meant when you were 10 years old. It was probably 2010, 2009.
Yeah, 2010, yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, you're born in 99, just like me, huh?
Yeah, born in 99.
So you graduated in 2018?
I graduated in 2017 from high school.
Oh, okay, so you're a year above me. So I was born in December. So I got pushed back. I think it's like November and December birthdays. They got pushed in the previous year, or the next year, not the previous year.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, just as well, it seems like you've had a dream and a vision for a very long time. And that's always something that I can appreciate, especially when people are still doing what they set their mind to. A lot of the times I've tried to influence people to do things in life, whether it be start a business or start a brand or just make videos or whatever it is. And many people got into it and then they hit like their first road bump and they're like, that's not for me. It's like, is it not for you or did it just get hard? So for you, it's been 16 years since you told yourself that you were going to be the Black Seth MacFarlane, which I think is hilarious. Would you say that there was any, this is maybe a rhetorical question, but would you say along the way, was there any road bumps that were really like, is this the thing I want to do? Or is there something different that maybe I should try to put my effort into? Like, when did it get hard and how did that process go for you?
It got hard the first day.
Oh, of course it did. Absolutely. Because you tried. That's what that means.
Yeah, I mean, being a little kid and having huge aspirations, and having big visions, and not really knowing how to explain it to the people around you, of those visions, either you don't have the vocabulary for it or they may not understand it.
Right.
I feel like that has always been like an internal struggle that I just started off with. Yeah. And I kind of just adopted a mindset that rather than trying to explain or tell people, because I try to do that for a while and for a long time. And I felt like people just left maybe a little bit even more confused. That resonates with me pretty deeply, man. Yeah. I'll let you continue though. But so I just tried to, adopt the practice of just proving it to people by showing them through my actions rather than just telling them. That way they can. That way they finally see what I've always been seeing, and I didn't have to explain it to them. They just finally see the result.
That's where most people they don't believe until they see, right? A lot of people say seeing is believing. But even the people in say close circles like family or friends or people you've known for a while, they still expect a failure at some point, and they're not to say that you will fail or that anybody will fail, but failure is pretty common, especially when you try. So with the people in your close circle, was there ever times where people had said, give up, try something new? Maybe they weren't always the people in your corner.
Well, fortunately enough, I feel like I've always had a pretty supportive support system.
That's good.
I guess at the beginning, because I come from a Caribbean background. Like, my mother was Haitian. I grew up in a Haitian household.
Right.
And coming to America as a Haitian kid, the parents our parents sacrificed so much for us to be here, and they worked so hard for us to have a good life. So kind of the expectation to them is for us to pursue the route of like being like a engineer or a lawyer or like, a doctor.
Yeah, like a high profile job that you need school for.
Yeah. So
I can understand that.
So to come to my parents and or come to my mother and tell her that I wanted to pursue the arts. At first at 10 years old, she would just, my mom didn't necessarily believe or understand that that's really what I wanted to do. Because, the typical 10-year-old would just throw out whatever. And
Yeah,
then
who's
the
going to
next
take a
day,
10-year-old serious when they say, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or I'm going to do whatever?
yeah. So as a kid, she was always supportive of me drawing my characters in her binder and writing my own scripts. But then when it got to the point of going to school and really deciding what major I was going to pick, and me being dead set on choosing animation, it wasn't that she wasn't supportive of me. It was just she was worried because she didn't know much about like the animation art aspect and how that can turn into dollar bills.
Right, and I could see that, it's most parents just want their kids to be safe, secure, and have money in their pocket. And if anything kind of comes in the way, they're going to be a little hesitant or certainly have some worry. So I can understand. I mean, can I ask, do you have a degree? You graduated with, or do you have a degree in animation?
Yeah, so I went to SUNY Fredonia.
Oh, nice.
It's like right outside of Buffalo, New York. I graduated with a degree in animation and illustration and a minor in creative writing.
Wow, okay, very nice.
Yeah.
And you definitely feel like you've been able to apply the skills you've learned in school, the things that you've paid for, you're actually using your degree, you feel?
Honestly, I feel like the number one thing I got from school was just insight on other communities and other people and other ways of life.
Interesting.
And aside from that, just networking. I feel like those are the two main things I got from school. Honestly, everything that I've been able to learn and apply to this career I'm pursuing now in terms of animation, business, finance, writing, I mostly learned it from YouTube, like the good school of YouTube.
Yeah, if I could share for a second, I dropped out of college. I went to SUNY Broome for about 9 days, and I dropped out. I was going to get a liberal arts degree. I was the first one in my class to drop out. I was the first one in my family to drop out of college. It didn't feel great.
Wow.
Mind you, my mom has a master's degree, my dad has a master's degree, my sister has a bachelor's, my brother has 2 associates, and probably some other technical training as an engineer. So I'm the only one in my family without any type of actual schooling or degree. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But it was that first, when I dropped out that I really understood that if I'm going to spend money on this degree and I'm going to spend time at this school, it better do the things that I want it to by the time I get out. And I've spoken to a lot of people. I used to Uber maybe like a year and a half ago. So I spoke to a lot of college kids, went up to Ithaca and I would Uber there. So I have a great understanding of how people are, especially students in school, in college specifically. And for the most part, I found that everybody has a false idea of what college is going to offer them. Most people say, yeah, I learned in my classes and maybe I have this degree now and maybe I'm going into that field. So yeah, it could have worked, or it seems like it worked out. But otherwise, they're like, I'm doing busy work for some of my assignments. I'm doing homework then, when I can't work and do my job, make money or whatever else. It seems to me that college in a modern day sense has kind of more gotten in the way of what people can assume or say presume for their own lives to be within their reach for accomplishments versus what it's actually doing to help them along in their life. If you get a degree, just a blanket statement, there's a good chance you're not going to use it. And if you're getting a degree that's a specialized field, like if you go into medicine and you become like a surgeon or a nurse or anything like that. Yeah, you're going to need a degree. You're going to need technical training. You're probably going to need, those years in school and clinicals and labs or whatever else. If you don't have a good idea of what you want to do and you just go to college, you're wasting time and you're wasting money. And it's been a complete discredit to the people that actually are like excited to go to school, that get spit out of these institutions and think I wasted my time. So I guess that's my question for you. You do think that what you did in school, it was worth it, not simply in the regard of you got this degree, now you can use it to make money?
Yeah, I do not regret my time going to college at all.
That's so good. That's very good.
Yeah, I learned more from YouTube than I did go into that school in terms of animation. And I did enjoy the writing program a lot, though, there. I did learn a lot about writing and how to conduct a story better.
Well, that's good. And at the very least...
For the most part, the most impactful thing and the most influential thing I took with me was the people and the experiences.
And that's important as well. I could say for the most part, probably most people that go to school or go to college would probably agree. Say the same thing. Like, yeah, maybe I didn't learn exactly what I thought I was going to, or I didn't gather the skills I thought I would. but they definitely found value in it still. And at the very least, there's still value to go to college, and I'm glad that you found value in it. But as you might not be familiar with this because this is our first time really speaking, but I am not a big proponent for college at all. I think if anything, if you want to go to school because you want to get a degree that you think is going to help you get a good job because you want to make money, you should just go get a job that makes good money. And then, in the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many years you're going to be in school for, you can just work at a company instead.
Or get a trade.
I have 2 friends. One of them, before he graduated high school, he had a job at a welding company with his brother, who's my age. So I think there was like 4 or 5 years between us. And so now at 19 years old, he is welding at a company with his brother where they make aircraft simulators for the United States Air Force. He's making over $65,000 a year, and he is 19 years old. And he has been making that money since he was in high school, basically. That kid is crazy. He's a good guy. But that is... well, not to talk too much about him because I haven't seen him in a while. Hope he's doing good. But he is a bit reckless. He's kind of a crazy guy, and he understands that he's not going to live forever. He's like, 50's good. And I'm like, 50? He's like, yeah, I could die at 50. He's like, all the fumes, all the metal, all the fumes that I'm breathing in all day. He's like, I don't even have a retirement. And I'm like, okay, sure, man. There's costs to everything. Is kind of what I'm getting at here. But the fact that you were able to get so much from YouTube for free, I'm very happy to hear that. I want to ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say people honestly underestimate YouTube, and something I've learned as I've gotten older, and this applies to everyone because we all take in social media. It's just a part of our culture now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we all need to be a lot more cognizant of what we spend our time watching.
That's a very good point. Say that again for us. Say that again.
I feel like we all need to be more cognizant of what we spend our time watching, like what we consume on the internet.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. People fall down rabbit holes. They see stuff that's clearly not true or maybe just true enough for them to believe it. And then, oh gosh, I could tell you something terrible, which perhaps we could share it on this podcast. I wanted to ask you, where in upstate are you from? You said you went to school at right outside of Buffalo?
So I'm located in Albany, New York.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So Buffalo. Okay, so not super close. Probably like an hour from Albany, maybe. Buffalo is.
What, Buffalo?
Maybe a little bit more.
It's like 5 hours away. I went to school a little bit farther.
Oh, I'm thinking of Syracuse. My bad. Ooh, no, Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo's way farther. Yeah, Buffalo's up past Rochester.
Yeah, it's a bit farther from us.
That's true. Okay, so with that in mind, oh God, should we talk about this? Let's do it. Alrighty. So to build on what you said about being more cognizant about what we watch, what we see, what we absorb. So, are you familiar with what happened a couple years ago with the mass shooter in Buffalo?
Yes, yeah. I believe I was still in school at the time. I remember hearing about that.
So that individual was radicalized from whatever, he'd seen some stuff online, I'm sure. He had written a manifesto that was about 500 pages long, and apparently a lot of that was copy-pasted from 4chan, which was notorious for having some really right-wing rabbit holes to fall down into.
Right.
So the reason I bring this up is because I actually went to school with that guy. I was on, I did swim club. My sister and I actually, after school, we would work out. It was maybe like 10 or so people, and he was part of that group. And my father's also a teacher, and he taught him in 2 separate occasions, 7th grade, and I think later on, maybe 11th or 12th. So it really hit close to home. Obviously it was pretty far away, up in Buffalo, but my hometown, Conklin, that's where he was from. So he was a very nice kid. He was a very quiet kid. I probably never had a conversation with him in my life. And I could never really see that from him ever. So after he graduated, within that next year, before I think he turned 20 years old, he had really gotten into some crazy stuff. I think a lot of the weapons that he brought, he had like writing on them that was just pure disgusting hatred. So yes, with that in mind, I think it's very important, and that's why I had you reiterate that for some other reasons as well, just because I think that's very important, is that you need to be careful of what you absorb, because if you are spending time around people, and this is the same for anybody, if you're spending time around negative influences, you'll probably be negatively influenced, right? That's not like a, bizarre thing to say. But with that in mind,
it works your psyche.
Yes, it's very hard to get people back, is what I'm trying to say. Once people get to a point where they only accept certain types of information, it's not just about if it's true or not, it's only if it confirms their bias. If people get to points where they start to see things in a way that is unshiftable, and I won't say you can't, in any regard, change somebody if they're having really terrible thoughts about things. But what's more important is we kind of catch that before. So I've always tried to be a positive influence online. I think Socks with John helps with that. You definitely seem like a good influence online, very happy. I mean, I won't say like exceptionally like jumping around like crazy, but you're very calm, you're very nice, you're very fluent in your language, and you make sure that the things that you're promoting are good things and you're trying to work with people. So I can appreciate that. So what I'm getting at is that we need more people like you, willing to do things on your own, willing to understand that the world is difficult sometimes to act within, or just act within, and being a positive influence, whether it's online. The moral of the story is kind of this. What I've understood is the harder you try, the harder it gets. But it is worth it to try. So just a quick side tangent on that. I just wanted to give some information to you so we could kind of understand where we come from exactly, and the basis of some of our I don't know, say our morals, or why we do the things that we do. So I do have another question for you. It's not along the same line, so we'll kind of jump around here. But what are your future plans, would you say, for Daydreaming Artwork Studios? If actually, yeah, just answer that, and then I'll ask you another question, which is a little bit more nuanced.
My future plans for Daydreaming Artwork Studios. Well, I feel my first project, or this first project that I'm working on currently, called The Aura of Upstate. Mm-hmm. It's seemed to catch on with its own following and its own audience to a much greater magnitude than any other project that I've worked on has.
That's really good.
So
getting some traction. Very nice.
Yeah, I think I want to continue to grow this project because I believe that the potential for it is limitless. And a lot of people really love the message that I'm pushing behind the project. So I want to continue to grow that project. I had done one season of it, and right now I'm prepping to start the second season and see how I can go about that and get some funding for that.
And tell us a little bit more about that. It's you animate your podcast that you have with people in upstate New York? Yeah,
so it's basically inspired by a show called Midnight Gospel.
Yes, yep.
On Netflix. And it's a show by this comedian named Duncan Robinson where they took episodes from his real life podcast and animated them and made a TV show.
I love that show.
Yes.
I used to watch that with my friends all the time. They always got shoes at the end of the episode. That was like the thing. Like something always was shoes somehow. Like the birds were shoes,
Yeah. And as an animator, I keep a checklist of shows I would have loved to have worked on.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's at the top of my list.
This is the Midnight Gospel.
Yeah. So it really, really sucked when I learned that they weren't getting renewed for a second season.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess kind of living my dream of working on that project, I created it myself, where I basically interviewed people within my own community of upstate New York and took snippets of every podcast that I had with them and turned that into an animated short film.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, and I also made a documentary following my journey of making the project and what's happened since I made that project as well.
You're definitely capitalizing on your own opportunity that you're creating, which is awesome, because a lot of people will get to a point where they think things are working out and then they get stagnant. They're like, well, I've done everything. I've got to the point where I wanted to see myself. That's all. But continuously growing and trying new things, failing, figuring out why you failed and trying something new. You seem like that type of guy, Evans. You definitely seem like the, try again.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest fear is literally not trying. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like my biggest fear is, say things don't work out for me in this career path. I can live perfectly fine knowing that I tried and did everything that I possibly could to make it a reality.
And that's the thing. If you can sit back with yourself and say, even if it didn't work out, I still tried my best. That's a lot more than most people can say. A lot of people just,
Yeah, I can remember knowing that.
yeah,
Keeping that in perspective.
that's very important because the most of the time people have tried to kind of put me down. I'm sure people have done the same to you. So like, oh, well, have you thought of this? You thought of this? And it's not in the effort of like combining efforts, and it's in the effort of they feel bad about themselves, and so they don't want to see you do good. And
Yeah.
like a detractor, just anybody who So with that in mind, I do want to ask you a question that's it's quite revealing. It's not going to be like what kind of underwear are you wearing, but it's I'll just ask. I've asked a lot of people this question. Hundreds of people have asked this question. I started asking people this question a couple years ago when I came up with it, whether it was as an Uber driver, as an ice cream man, whatever. So I'll ask you, if I gave you $10 million in the next 5 years to spend it, starting immediately now. Also, there is a reset button. Within those 5 years, anytime you can hit that reset button and it comes back to exactly this moment. The money is magic. I snap my fingers and it's instantly put into a bank account, given to you in cash, whatever you would like, and the IRS is completely satisfied with this transaction. What do you do?
Okay, what do I? I'm gonna do a bunch of things. Should I just run across the list?
Absolutely, go absolutely ham.
Okay, so I guess the first thing I would do is I would put 6 months worth of my expenses in my savings account, in a high yield savings account.
Excellent.
I would max out my what's it called? I would max out my Roth account.
Sure.
I would pay off all my debt, my student loans and my car loan.
What do you do with the other 9.9 million?
Well, I would pay off my mom's whatever bills my mom's got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Probably buy her a crib.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of my people. Take care of my family.
Sure.
And then after that, put some money towards my animation business and creating a season of my show. And the rest, I guess I would just look into different foundations. Maybe start my own foundation, probably having to do with aiding immigrants who moved to this country and are trying to start a life themselves, most likely.
They could definitely use the help now, my friend. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. You're still only about $200,000, maybe $400,000 into there. If you buy your mom a house, maybe, and you pay off everybody's debt. Okay, let's say you spent $1 million. What do you do with the other 5 years and $9 million?
5 years and $9 million.
I know. Remember, you have that reset button too.
I have the reset to go back and then have all my money again.
Absolutely. So the reason that exists, I'll tell you, because I already got a pretty good answer from you. That's more than I get from some people. Most people say, "Oh, I buy a house, I blow it, and I hit the reset button and do whatever." Yeah. But the thing, the big difference between people's answers is always how they think about their current life versus what it would change with 10 million. Most people are like, "Oh, well, 10 million, I'd change my whole life. Obviously, I'd move somewhere else. I'd sell everything I have here, or, buy new stuff somewhere else. I'd travel every day. I'd do whatever." Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Do it. People would say like, "Oh, what if I die in a hang gliding accident?" I said, "Okay, that counts as hitting the reset button." Say, they're like, "Okay, well, I'm going to, do a bunch of drugs and whatever else the first time around. And then I'll do the productive thing second." That's what I didn't hear from you, which is, I'll be honest, it's good. And that's why it's a revealing question, because it's not just, are you a good person? Would you spend the money on things that aren't just yourself? But it's also, do you have a plan? Are you smart? And are you introspective enough to understand where you would, or how you would actually use the money?
Yeah, nah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't want to waste the money.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's just a thought experiment. But you think in a way of, yes, that could be real someday. So I have to set my moral compass to align myself correctly. So when that time comes, I'm not a bastard. I'm not somebody who's gonna try to turn that 10 million into 100 billion and then sit on it while everybody else works for you the rest of your life or your life.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously, in like the things that we pursue, which in a sense is entertainment, and like ideally we would want to, both in our professions, being in a position where we're making like a good amount of money, and that our audience is growing enough.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like it's just smart to think about what you would do when you have set amount of money. Because I'm thinking, even with the money I have right now, like I try to be very conscientious of what I do with it and how I spend my money. Not necessarily being like extremely frugal, but just being smart.
That's good. That's more than most people do.
Principles now, how am I going to have those principles once I get to 10 million?
There you go. And that's why this is like I've said, I've asked so many people this question. The biggest difference between people that are business minded or entrepreneurial minded, I mean, you're just an entrepreneur, you have your own business, versus somebody who is focused on short-term goals, is that they don't think they'll actually get to that point where they'll actually ever make $10 million. Or they think maybe they will, but the money, whatever comes with the money, it's also going to change who they are. So who am I to say what I'm going to be? And those are people that I consider weak individuals.
Yeah.
People that don't have conviction to understand who they will be when things happen to them. If I got punched in the face, I'm going to return that punch, but it's not before I think, what the hell just happened to me? It's not an instinctive reaction to be like, oh, somebody punched me in the face, they're getting punched. What if it was a 7-year-old girl who was getting picked up by her dad? They got, swing her arm around too quickly. You're going to react and punch her in the face? I doubt it. But, a lot of people, they don't entertain those thoughts, or they don't entertain the hypothetical circumstances. But it seems that you have a good head on your shoulders, at least a good heart in your chest, I should say.
Yeah, I try to.
Absolutely, Evans. I think that the difference between people that are actually going to succeed in business versus the ones that maybe have a business and most likely won't succeed at some point is that you're not focused on the money. You're focused on the project and the people, which the money will come, believe me. If you focus on the right things and you set the groundwork and the infrastructure of being a good person, wanting to work with people, being friendly and kind, you will find success. Whether that's $10 million or whether that's your own artwork studio where you have 30 employees making content for you. That's the be all end all, is not for you to run the world with your fat stacks, which is very good because, like I said, I've asked this question to a lot of people, and for the most part, most of the responses are just like, blow it, just blow the money, hit the reset button, and then invest it. That's like, okay, yeah, what a good answer. I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah.
But now we'll switch it up a little bit. We are about 37 minutes in. Very nice. So we're going to do a section for your promotions now. I might edit this out. Maybe I won't. If you're watching this part of John, that's because he didn't do his job. But so if you would like to do a little bit of segment, just promoting your channel and all the other things that you do and where people can find you, they're going to be on the screen at the same time, so don't worry about that. And in the description, if you guys want to check out, you can find all the links to Evan's channel and all his other social media accounts as well. So what do you got for us, Evan? Go crazy. Go crazy. Tell us all.
All right, so you guys can follow me on YouTube at Daydreaming Artwork Studios. You can also follow me on one of my projects called The Aura of Upstate on Instagram, called at the_aura_of_upstate. You can also follow me on TikTok at Daydreaming Artwork _studios. I also have a website that's in the link of my YouTube. I also have a website that's in the link of my Instagram.
Gotcha.
Where you can buy prints and stickers that help support this project and help with funding future seasons of it.
Absolutely. Well. I'm very happy to be able to help you out in this regard too. I'm not sure how many people are going to see this podcast, but I do hope if anybody's watching still at this point, you do check out Evan's channels because he does great work, and I'd love to see him continue. Socks with John is the official sponsor of all the In One Ear Out podcasts. As always, I'm John, and here's the socks. Here's not actually the socks. Usually I don't have a person that's in my screen. I'm actually recording myself, like I said. So usually I put something over myself. So you're just going to have to look at me. All right. But thank you as always, Socks with John. Thank you as always, Daydreaming Artwork Studios, for coming on today especially. But now we're going to switch things up a little bit, and I want to have you, if you have any questions for me, go crazy. You can ask whatever you want, man. Most of the time, I don't have people ask me questions. I usually have an idea for what we're going to talk about when they get on. But I would like to hear from you if there's anything that you would like to know about me.
Sure. So how did you go about starting this podcast? Or like, what's the main thing you're trying to get out of this podcast?
So I started this podcast actually back in 2020 during the lockdown. So I think it was like March to April or May. And I had done it with some friends. That's an older channel now. I haven't touched that channel. I think we don't even know the passwords, honestly. It's on YouTube still. And the reason I kind of stopped is because I started my ice cream business. And I found that making videos on YouTube getting like 10 views were probably not as good a use of my time as if I could just go make money selling ice cream. So that's what I did. So I sold rolled ice cream in 2020. It was pretty difficult, considering the pandemic and everything. But I picked it back up last year, actually. I don't really remember why. I think just all my other projects weren't working out, and I was like, hey, I have that podcast still. Let's do that again. And I did. The reason, or what I'm trying to get out of this, it's a bit convoluted, but we'll get into it because I think you're somebody who's worth the explanation. So when I was maybe 18, 19, a kid trying to figure out the world, I've done a lot in my life, a lot of just different random stuff. I was a band promoter at that time for my friends. I was working a couple different jobs. I was an independent contractor for a company. So I was always kind of doing things that other people hadn't done yet, things that are not difficult, but just like, oh, I haven't gotten into that. You're a young kid or whatever. So you can laugh if you want, but I kind of hatched the idea that I want to accomplish the ultimate good. Whatever that is, we can get into that in a little bit, what I think that would be. But I've always wanted to do that, and I thought, how could I do that? I've worked with humanitarian organizations, I volunteered, and whatever else. And I've always understood that that's not really solving the problem, that's just alleviating the people that are having the problem. So I hope to, in 12 years, launch my presidential campaign and run for the 2040 election for the president of the United States.
I see.
Hold for laughter. So I know maybe it seems like kind of egregious to, have such an idea, but in truth, this is actually the plan. So the reason I do the podcast now, why it's called In One Ear Out, it's actually my friend had said, he's not very good with English. He's better now. He's much better now. But this was 5 or so years ago. And he was like, boom, just in one ear out. Boom, just like that. We're like, that's great. So the forefront of truth and always having a factual basis for the things that we say, it's very important because I am tired of the lies. I'm tired of the institutions that run this country more than the people should. I'm tired of politicians getting away with things locally or federally or whatever. I'll say this. The very first thing I would do as president, and I'm talking within like the first 60 seconds of me, lifting my hand off the Constitution, not the Bible. I would not swear on the Bible. That's a holy book. I'm also an atheist, so that would, a bit of a conflict to swearing on the holy book. But also, I think it's more important if you're swearing in on an actual constitution or a copy or whatever. That's saying, because the first thing the president needs to do is preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States of America. That is what the president needs to do. That's what they have to do. That's what they say out loud. So help me God, whatever. So I would swear on the Constitution. I would turn to the crowd, everybody going bonkers crazy, and I would have my vice president hand me an executive order. And before I spoke to the crowd, I would sign my full name to formally recognize the Native American genocide. And I would then say, not for 1 second will I encumber the position of president with the previous administrations and the 400 years of the genocide blood on my hands. It will not happen, and it stops here. That would basically be my first step at kind of beginning this era of reconciliation, that the United States is not the best thing on the world. It's just a pretty good thing for a lot of people. But we've also done heinous and unforgivable, maybe not unforgivable because those people aren't around anymore. It's like, you can't beg for forgiveness from a grave. But, just as well, I think that would kind of start the idea that the United States is fallible, just like everybody else, just like every other country. We are not perfect. We strive to be, we try to be, whether people think we're the best country on the planet or not, that doesn't help for the people that are still being subjugated or for people whose cultures are still being erased in modern day. So most land in this country is not occupied by Native Americans. However, most land in this country, if not all of it, was owned by Native Americans in the 1500s, and they had owned it for many, many years, So maybe that's not the ultimate good, but at the very least, that's going to start the idea that we need to do something, and it's going to be unconventional. If people don't like that, hey, I can't really, I can see people having some outbursts or being upset that I did something like that, but the quality of my person will, what's that?
I said that's going to happen regardless, though. People are going to be upset regardless.
Well, yeah, there's also that. But if people are pissed at me for doing a good thing, it's like, okay, you know what? I got something for you. Boom. You can't see this, but I'm flipping off the camera right now. Basically, to do something like that, I would also have my vice president be a Native American from a tribe, possibly be somebody like an authority figure within that tribe, somebody with a good heart, obviously, but also who is deeply enriched, or sorry, not enriched. ingrained, not the word, but basically very entwined with the culture of Native Americans, so that anything I do, it's not baseless. It's not just, oh, I think this is a good idea, so this is what another white dude's going to do. That's not what we need. We need true, cohesive, productive support for these individuals, for Native Americans, and it starts with recognition of what's happened so that we can stop it right there. And then further, from there, the biggest thing that I would do that would probably, I don't know if you're going to take me serious in this, but I think that aliens exist. I think that they are real. And I also think that aliens would like to work with with people, with the planet Earth. And I think that we can do that. The position of power that I would be in, I would say something along the lines of, I'd sign an executive order basically that says we're confiscating all of the equipment, all the technology, all the scientific research from these special access projects, and we're going to confiscate that into the United States where it should be, because our tax dollars are paying for these black projects. And then with that, we can kind of say, hey, the world is preparing to be peaceful and not be concerned about making money, about producing value for shareholders, or about domination. Next to that would then be, denuclearization on a global scale. I have plans. This is pretty cohesive. It goes deep. I got a pretty long plan of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to campaign, what everything would look like, the aftermath of my presidency. It's not just I'm pulling this out of my ass right here to try to impress, some people.
I'm sure. You sound like a dude with a plan.
I definitely have a plan here. But basically, I think the ultimate good would be to tell the world that aliens exist, number one. Number two, that we should denuclearize and that we should probably try our best to be peaceful. And number three, if we can get there, maybe this is like weird, but if we could get there, I think the aliens would probably help us. They'd share technology and we could experience peace on Earth. It's pretty... Yeah?
Do you think that the world... Because the universe is so vast, I find it hard to believe that there's not any type of aliens out there.
And
I don't know how intelligent they are, but...
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
They're out there.
It could be moss on an asteroid hurling through space. That's life. Or it could be something that's so smart they don't even communicate anymore. They just telepathically, beam something into your head. That could also be the truth.
But if we ever did find alien life that was intelligent enough to interact with us, I don't know if the world is necessarily ready for that.
I agree, but I don't think we'll ever really be ready for it. Ever. I don't think there's a time outside of, like where we were a couple years ago with kind of some of the things they were exposing from the CIA or whatever else that they had. They're like, hey, these are UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. They're not UFOs anymore because it's something so different. And so it's clear to me that at the very least that there's most likely, I would say as far as like percentages go, like 99.99. Like there's like a certain shred of doubt within me that thinks maybe aliens aren't real. But I've seen a lot of content. I've done a lot of research in this regard. I would say, check this out. Dr. Stephen Greer, he does the Disclosure Project. He's a very intelligent man. And he was actually somebody who debriefed Bill Clinton about the UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. He's got this quote where he uses his accent where he's like, they were lying to me. They were lying to me. That's Bill Clinton. And basically, he was the person that had said, yes, not only do aliens exist, maybe he didn't say this exactly. He's like, it's not important that they exist. It's important about what they're doing and what we're doing with the technology we've gotten from crash sites. That's what's more important. So we're not on the ooh, are there aliens? Is it real? It's the what do we do with this information now? And who are the people that are in possession of these things? And are they good people? Which, guess what? They're probably not. I would still love to work with these institutions so I don't get my head blown off or, something crazier. But the idea is basically irrefutable that there's overwhelming evidence. The statistical likelihood of aliens existing is pretty high, I'd say. If the universe is infinite and it's also over 13 billion years old, there's a great chance that another Earth-like planet or even something happened, So I'm of that. I'm past the, hey, do you think aliens are real? Yes or no? It's what do we do now that we think or believe that they are real? And so for me, that's, if they have the technology to whatever it is, if it's interdimensional travel, if it's light speed travel, whatever. I'm sure humanity needs to get to a point of peacefulness before we start to explore out into the cosmos. Because if we are still a nation, well, how do I say this? I guess an Earth made of nations, Like we all have our separate countries. We're not one people yet. And we try to go out into space and we bring weapons and we put lasers on ships. I can almost guarantee that those things will disappear. We'll put some, whatever. We can have a spaceship go to Mars or go to Saturn or go wherever, and it's got all these guns and, weapons on it. I could see that just disappearing and be like, hey, we lost contact with that thing. What happened? Oh, well, I could almost guarantee the aliens don't want weapons in space. So with that, we're not prepared as humanity quite yet, but it would take basically a profound amount of effort to say, hey, we could get there though. And trust me, it's going to be absolutely terrifying for the first year. I mean, people would probably have heart attacks after they hear about it,
Yeah, I like to think about the I feel like when I go out and watch movies on aliens or TV shows on aliens, it's more so just them being like big and terrifying, and it's always combative. And I like to think a lot more about the psychological aspect of it all.
I'll say this really quick, not to cut you off, but if aliens can find us, and if they got here to this planet, there's nothing that we could do to their attacks. So why would we be hostile towards these people? And furthermore, the fact that we're alive, that we're not vaporized because of the things that we've done as human beings, proves that the aliens or the extraterrestrial are peaceful people or peaceful beings. Because, like I said, if they could get to us, then there's a good chance they could also, conquer and destroy us.
I mean, part of me really hopes that, at some point in like human existence, we do find like unity and like peace among all races.
Oh yeah,
color.
I don't see color. I see one people. If I stab my arm and it starts to bleed, and you do the same thing, and we compare our blood, we're gonna see it's both the same color. I guarantee.
Right, but a lot of people don't share the same sentiment.
That's true.
Some parts of me think that the only thing, at least to people who don't share the same sentiment as us, the only thing that I feel would cause them to or have them unify with us would be if aliens existed.
Well, that's part of the plan, actually, is if, I can make this announcement that's like, hey guys, aliens are real from the president of the United States. People aren't going to be like, no. They're going to be like, oh shit. And then hopefully through there, I can kind of guide people into how we can approach that. I'll be honest with you. I've tried to make contact. I've gone with people to certain places. We've meditated in ways to try to initiate contact. I've spoken to people that said they've been abducted. I'm going pretty deep. The idea is that I actually want to make contact with the extraterrestrial before I become president so that I can reveal my plan and say, what do you guys think? Is this the right thing to do? Because if they're like, John Holmberg, do not do that. I'll be like, all righty, okay, you guys, you're not my boss, but you guys are clearly much more intelligent than I am, so I'm going to take your advice on that. But if they're like, John Holmberg, for the love of God, please do that because we want to reveal ourselves and make your planet better, I'd be like, then full steam ahead. That's kind of the idea. I think this kind of plays into the same thing of embodying your philosophy versus just speaking philosophy. On this podcast, I had a individual on a couple times where we had discussions about philosophy. He's pretty smart. He is a born-again Christian, and I'm an atheist. So I was raised Christian, and then when I was like 13, I discovered some stuff online that changed my mind about religion. So now I'm an atheist. He was raised atheist, or just in an atheistic household, or secular. And I think in the last 2 or 3 years, he's become more religious. And so with that, we've had really good conversations. But the problem is when you have conversations about philosophy, it's almost worthless because unless you're doing something, you could say, well, to be a man is to be strong. It is to be, preserved, but it is also to be kind and to be, to be willing to admit that you're wrong, right? Those are important things to do. But if you don't apply that to your life, if you don't embody your philosophy, it's worthless to create the sentiment of what you would do in whatever situation. People say the trolley problem where it's like, oh, flip the lever to kill 5 people versus 1 person. Is that better or worse? What if that was your mother? You create whatever situation to try to shake up your morals. But the thing is, I've been relentlessly tested on my morality and my philosophy. And I think, as arrogant as it might be to say, I believe that I embody my philosophy well. So with the things that I hope to do in life, and like I said, I've been countlessly tested on people or with people that think that I'm going to falter because they're like pushing a little bit. It's like, oh no. So it's with this in mind that I think by the time I get there, I'll still be, hopefully, I'll preserve enough of the same person that I am. I'll still be a good person, at least as good as I think that I am. And, these beings will hope to work with me. and we could propel the human race into something that does not have to worry about sickness, poverty, or hunger, or war. And that's a utopia in the way that we describe things. But I do think, not even do I think, I accept that aliens or the extraterrestrial exist. I understand there's a likelihood that they've met us at this planet, and I think that the collaborations that we could put together as species would be unifying for our planet, but also incredibly prosperous for our planet as well. The kind of shoehorn this idea of like, okay, well, as a president, that's like a temporary employee. At most, it's going to be 8 years. You don't get a need to know, right? From the United States government, they're not going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you what you need to know, or not. Not in the same way. I need to know is like an actual like the highest of the highest like authorization to see like the secrets of the government. Even the president doesn't get that. Obama didn't get that. Clinton didn't get that. So if I do what I want to do, which is asteroid mining, and we put these things out into space and whatever else, and I make sure that we do not put weapons on any of these crafts, and people are like, John, why does that matter? I do believe we'll get to the point where it's like, hey, John, since you're kind of heading this whole like asteroid mining thing, we kind of need to clue you in on what's going on up there. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And they're like, yeah, we have some observers as we're doing this. And it's like, yeah, that's to be expected. So that's kind of the plan. It's even if I don't have this need to know where it's like, oh, John Holmberg, here's the evidence that aliens exist. It's the things that I plan to do. There's really going to be no likelihood that allows for me to not be in that atmosphere of needing to know, not having a need to know, but and through that, trying to be as transparent as I can with the people. I would go and I would say, hey guys, not to alarm anybody, but basically we see some things in outer space that aren't ours. They're not China's. It's not Russia. It's not India. It's not Japan. It's very clearly an extraterrestrial thing, but I'm just letting you guys know that, that's what we saw.
So
yeah,
I have another question.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Would you say that you're into conspiracies?
Not so much. I try not to be, because like we kind of talked about before, kind of leads down that rabbit hole, and it's like what you have to kind of accept or not accept sometimes. But there are conspiracies that I confide in, I'll say.
No, so the reason why I'm asking that is because I always keep in mind of the fact that there are things that we know in life, and then there are things that we don't know in life, and then there are things that we don't know that we don't know. Yes,
the unknown. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I was just gonna ask: is there like as a president, I assume that you do get unlocked, like someone unlocks those doors for you to then figure out these things that we don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you've taken into account.
So,
is that something that you mentally prepare for as well? Because
I
know being president is an extremely stressful job in of itself.
Yes. So I've gone through a lot of stuff. My life has been, as far as like how I've been taken care of, I've not really been struggling. Well, that's not true. I've struggled plenty. But in the regards of like, oh, I never went to bed hungry. I always, but yeah, just to answer your question. So it's like a tape. There are tapes that exist basically that every president watches, and I don't know if you're familiar with like the Pope, with what they have like this room. I think it's called the Room of Tears. Basically, after a Pope is elected, that person goes in there and they kind of dress up before they go out and speak. And that room is called the Room of Tears because people understand at that moment, whoever the Pope is, that their life has changed forever. And, maybe they're given some information and whatnot. But similar to the president, you go in this room and they put in this tape. And this tape basically tells you, hey, all these things you wanted to do, here's why the United States does what it does. And, you think like, oh, why were we in Vietnam? Why did we do things in this and that? You get the real answers. And I'm sure somewhere at the end of that clip, it's going to say, and by the way, nobody else is going to know about this. And it's going to stay like that because whatever video I would have been watching was probably made in the 70s or, earlier before that. So I am absolutely preparing myself the best I can. I will say what I plan on telling people straight up is like, look at everything I've campaigned on so far. What I've tried to do has been for the betterment of the people and to be transparent and to offer. I'll tell you a little bit more about my plans for president in a second if you're interested, but like my campaign and whatnot. But I will tell people straight up, like, look, once I get into the office and I'm given information, I will probably change my mind on some things because it will be demanded of me as president. 1, 2, everything I've done so far has been without that information. And 3, it would be ignorant to say, well, I know better than this thing, than this tape recording that, these people that I've worked with countless presidents have set before me simply so that I could be the only person to see it. Those are difficult things. But if I lead with that and I tell people like, look, understand that there will be times I have to hide things from you, where I will have to dissuade people from certain things, whether it be something they like, where I have to lie straight up, where I would just have like, hey, John, is this true? Are we going to war with Russia? I say, no, we're not going to war with Russia. But my meeting at the Pentagon or the Department of Defense, last week was saying, yeah, we're preparing for war with Russia. I just don't want to spook everybody yet. See, those are the type of things where it's like, if you can be transparent with the people, they will understand that you need to do what you need to do as the president. But it's the idea that,
yeah. But I guess there's a bit of conflict if you're going to be president and you're telling people that there are times where you do have to lie to them.
That's true.
And then at the same time try to be transparent. That I feel like that's like difficult.
Yeah.
To lay like a foundation of trust between like the people and the president.
And that's kind of the whole problem, right? Is you can't really. It's an issue of national security to be completely transparent as a president. If a reporter asked me a question, how many military bases are we constructing to combat, the expansionism of China? I mean, like, oh yeah, sure. Let me just give you the exact coordinates to these bases and all the information. Like, those are things I would just say. Oh, well, I would just personally say, like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable answering that question. It's an issue of national security. But there are certainly going to be, like, come up with whatever hypothetical situation, or, maybe not hypothetical, which is basically, if I'm telling people, like, look at guys, you got to understand that there's a lot that's happened between me getting elected and me now being president that has kind of, created this new mentality, because it's what you have to assume. You know what they say? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Because it's not as easy as it looks, and there's a lot of things that you kind of have to accept are just shitty. For instance, one of my plans is to say, if I'm going to be a young guy, I'm going to be 41 years old as president. Second youngest president ever. I think actually that would be the youngest, because JFK was 42, I think. So if I was president at 41 years old, that would be the absolute. Well, that would be the youngest. Anyway, so I would tell people my plan is to allow for raises for Congress for one reason only, because I'm going to be working them like dogs, because I am not going to, whatever else. The president has the power to, if they're going on break and they have things set up a certain way, we can get into that some other time. So basically, the president cannot use its constitutional power to say, I'm pulling Congress back into what's it called, forum or decorum, whatever, so that they can vote on this bill, say, because what they do is every 3 days, they basically take a break. And then they go on an extended break coming up August 1st, and that happens every year. So all of August, basically, no legislation is going to be passed. It's kind of a corrupt system, but maybe we can get into that some other time. But basically, the idea is that I'm going to say, okay, Congress, we're going to work hard. We're going to work quickly, and we're going to work together. I don't plan on running on a platform being a Democrat or Republican. I'm going to be an independent moderate. That's what I am now. I'm an independent, and I would encourage people to try at the third party. We can get into that again. Like I said, there's a lot to this. But so, sorry if I'm not quite exactly answering your question, but the plan would be, yes, I understand that might look bad. Like, raises for Congress. Congress doesn't deserve raises. But you can't ask people to do more work without more compensation within their job. So it's like, there's going to be some things that people don't agree with. And 100%, even I don't want to give raises to Congress, but you know what I do want? I want to push my legislation through, and I want things to happen quickly. And I want our government to work, not look like it's working, right? Or work for people that aren't the people. So it's a completely different approach to the presidency. And it's an idea that nobody's done this before, and as a young guy, maybe they won't take me seriously. But if I'm, sitting at the Oval Office and I'm doing the things that I had, it will not be possible for people to say, well, we can't take John serious. And maybe this is something you've dealt with as well, being a young guy in business, people not taking you seriously because of your age or because of what they assume about you.
I don't know if it's necessary that they don't take me seriously. I feel like I guess it's just more underestimate the magnitude of what it is that I'm trying to do.
100%. And that's, I deal with that all the time. I've worked with people. I've done events, for like 400 or 700 people or whatever, where I sell ice cream or I cater events. And people are like, oh, John, this is pretty cute. It's like, cute? Like, dude, I just made like, $1,300 in like a day. It's like, this is cute? This is cute to you? Okay, sure. I guess it's cute. Maybe that's just a thorn in my side about, I started when I was 19, and people for a very long time, whether it was people in business, people at the city of Binghamton, where I've tried to work with them to get my permits, they've given me a hard time simply because they didn't take me seriously. And people still to this day don't really take me seriously, the way that I would like to, at least. Yeah.
I feel like just as young individuals, because I feel like the typical 20-something person is kind of like lost
Oh
and
God,
just
yeah.
continue to find themselves, and they're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the person that's looking at you saying that is seeing themselves when they were in their mid-20s and they were kind of just, passing by in life. So when they do see people around our age that are, really trying to fight for something and are really focused and I guess have a little bit more of an old soul to us,
Yeah.
they see that.
Makes them upset because it imprints on them that they could have done it too, but they didn't. So they feel bad for themselves, and so they want to tear you down for it.
Yeah, that, and I guess they just feel like you'll succumb to everyone else around you.
Right, while also contributing to that same downfall.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty spot on, honestly. We've dealt with the same problems. I feel like you and I are quite aligned, honestly. In the same age group, basically.
But I will say,
mm-hmm.
yes, there are those type of people, but I will say I haven't been able to get to this position that I'm in if it wasn't for the people
mm-hmm.
in my close and like within my circle who've been there to support me. And I've been given a lot of love by the community, especially here in like the capital region with this product that I'm pushing. And I'm very, very thankful for that because I feel like, both of us being from upstate New York, we don't really get a lot of attention and love.
Yeah. If it's people,
really deserve it.
If it's not New York City, it's not New York. I tell people I'm from, like, I've gone to different countries, and the New York accent is so familiar with people because it's in all the movies, right? Every movie's got a New York City scene at some point. So when we went to the United Kingdom on a school trip back in 2018, after I graduated, basically people would be like, oh, you guys are American. And we'd be like, yeah. They'd be like, oh, so what's New York like? And we're like, whoa, how do you know that? They're like, your accent, you're not from New York? And I'm like, no, I'm from New York. They're like, oh, what's the city like? And it's like, I live 3.5 hours outside of the city. I've been there a couple times. It's very different from, where I actually live. I tell people, they're like, oh, what part of New York City are you from? I was like, oh, no, I'm from New York State. They're like, okay, where? I said, the rest of it. Outside of Long Island, basically.
They almost think you're talking about another state.
I might as well be. I live in Binghamton. Where I live exactly is 5 minutes from the border of Pennsylvania. My whole life, like Conklin, that's where I grew up. That's a border town with Pennsylvania, and so it's always been, basically another state outside of New York City, especially. But I can agree with what you're saying, that if, from people from upstate New York, like everybody that I had tried to work with the ice cream, if they were like professionals, for the most part, if they were like people with money, they're like, oh, you should come do this down in the city. And it's like, maybe, but I would have to, all the customer base I have up here would be gone. I would have to spend so much more money to do it down there. My ingredients would be so much more expensive. I'd have to basically start over. It's like, is it worth it? Probably not. But
and you'd have a competition.
Oh, the competition would be absolutely bananas down there. As it stands, like when I sell ice cream on the corner, I'm not doing it this year for different reasons. Somebody got murdered on the street, and then in the same week, a girl had committed suicide off the parking garage. So my parents were begging me not to. I said, yeah, somebody got killed, and then my dad was in the kitchen. He said, you mean murdered? And I was like, okay. So, yeah, New York City is kind of like the be-all, end-all of what people consider New York to be. So when you say, hey, I'm from Binghamton, New York, they're like, what the fuck's Binghamton, New York? It's like, nah, thank you. But it's, I could almost say that it would almost do better if New York was like split, if we had like a downstate and an upstate. And I went to Albany, I think a couple years ago with my fiance at the time, which we're not together anymore. And we noticed, we're like, wow, this is the capital of New York, and it is pretty empty. It's pretty empty.
I feel like a lot of people, at least online, who just came in Albany, like they've said that it's underwhelming.
It's pretty underwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like we've, at least in the capital region, we've been making strides to have more programs around the capital for people to come for free. We've had like weekly concerts for free for the public to go, and I see the efforts that we're trying to make for sure. And I think we just need to continue supporting each other
Oh, 100%.
To eventually be, mentioned with the likes of like New York City while having our own flavor,
Right.
which we do. We just don't get enough coverage.
100%. Even the accent is different in New York City. You and I, we speak pretty similar with our lingo, with whatever else. It's very different in New York City because it's just so many people are coming from places, wherever else in the world, and they don't really leave New York City. Like I know some people that have moved out of there, but they bring it with them. Everybody kind of does. Not to say it's like a good or a bad thing, but I 100% agree. I personally believe that the people in this country, or the people in my area, local people in upstate New York, people at all, they need to be more powerful. Not just they need more money, they need more, influence. They need to have resources and they need to feel good about themselves. We have an extremely detrimental mental health crisis in Binghamton right now, perpetuated by the drug crisis in Binghamton as well. And then our local municipalities, like our government, they don't do jack. They don't do anything, right? So somebody, that person that had gotten murdered earlier this summer in May, in front of Salvation Army, he was getting dinner and he routinely would go down. I actually interviewed the person who was witnessing that happen on my podcast the last episode, or 2 episodes ago. And it was 3 weeks after the event when she finally was like, yeah, I'm able to eat and speak and do anything and sleep again, because she watched her best friend get stabbed to death in front of her while she was sharing a meal with him. So the government, our mayor in Binghamton, decided that they wanted to close down the Salvation Army for like 5 years because, incidents were happening there. But it wasn't until finally somebody was like killed, murdered right on the sidewalk, that they immediately shut it down. So now we have a food insecurity in Binghamton as well. And, new soup kitchens have opened up and try to kind of alleviate that problem. But we have a multifaceted issue where people can't get the support they need. They don't have the money for it. They have mental health issues, so they can't even find people to help them out because they don't know how to interact correctly. There's a food insecurity. There's a housing issue. We're just not doing as good as we could be. And I would profoundly love to see the people of Binghamton, the people of upstate New York, do so much better. Because they deserve it. Because it was not their fault that, like a problem we're dealing with now is gentrification here. The college kids kind of run the economy because all the money comes in from out of state or wherever else. And, the college kids are paid for by their parents. So on 2 separate occasions, this girl who was on my podcast, I think Natasha or Nicole. I'm so sorry. I think it was Natasha. They're twins. So, but anyway, she had said on 2 separate occasions, her landlord said, hey, you're getting kicked out. We're not going to renew your lease because I'd rather rent to the students. And that happens all the time. Later on the end of this month, I'm having another person on. He's actually a landlord in downtown. And we're going to talk about that exact situation of gentrification and why I know why, but why exactly do landlords feel it's okay to only rent to students and kick out the residents of Binghamton? Basically, upstate New York does not work for people that live in upstate New York. It works for people that come by and make money off of us. The people in downstate, most of the properties in downtown Binghamton are owned by like a select few people. And if they're not owned by that like holdings group, they're owned by people outside of New York, either outside of New York or New York City. And that's not really good, because when you're having problems, and your landlord is not even available, then, you're not going to be heard. And your problems are going to continue.
Right.
So I would agree 100%. Upstate is very, very different from the rest of, there's like 9 million people in upstate. And I think there's like 25 million people in all of New York. So the rest of them are in New York City. What would you say, Evans, is some of the things that we could really do, outside of just speaking on this podcast, that could really influence the people in our area and help promote the change in the allow for the resources that they need to get to them? So what are some of the things we can do?
I feel like what we're currently doing in terms of having podcasts and just speaking about our communities, I feel like that's the most powerful thing we can do in terms of social media. That's how you get the most.
Yeah, what we could do online, absolutely. I'm very much a pragmatist. I like doing things that are, do the right thing, even if it's not what you like, right? Like, so I would almost say, maybe we could give people a call to action. We could say, go volunteer, or go try to work with a humanitarian organization, or whatever else, or better yet, just be kinder to people, right? When you have that opportunity to be a dick, don't, just second guess yourself and think, hey, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah. Like a compliment goes a long way for people too, as well.
Oh yeah. You do have to be careful with that, because some people are a little weird.
It depends on what and what the compliment is.
That's absolutely true. But at the very least, if we could tell people, an actionable thing, what they can do. If you're watching this video today and you're considering any of the things that we've said so far and you're thinking, yeah, that's probably true. These are the issues going on and I would like to help, or that things need to change. This is what you could do. My personal recommendation, and then Evan, I'll have you say something because I'm sure you have a great idea as well. My personal recommendation for people is to join a Rotary Club. There are millions of Rotary clubs in the world. There's like 1.2 in the world. And in the United States, I think there's like 60,000. There are Rotary clubs all over. It's a humanitarian organization, and it's mostly full of professionals that have been doing it for a very long time. The issue we're running into, well, I'm not in the Rotary Club anymore for this exact reason. Younger people are not necessarily involved in the Rotary Club because it's kind of an older person's thing. And when I was involved, they kind of made me like an errand boy. If I wanted to get something done, they're like, oh, talk to this person. He would say, talk to this person. They would say, and so on. So, I've done a lot of work with them. I'd gone to the district conferences to kind of give some ideas about some of the projects I'd hope to work with. I was an ambassador for Shelter Box, which is a company that is basically, they go to impoverished areas or, any place where a crisis has gone on, whether it was a war or whether it was a famine or whatever. And they have this box which has everything you need to survive. It has a water filtration system that is powered by sunlight, has a tent, it has crayons and coloring books and rulers and protractors, school supplies, anything that you need to run a family, to run a household. And basically what they do is they go to these areas, say like Syria, with things going on, or South Sudan. They'll go and they'll get these shelter boxes and they'll allow people to have temporary housing and have some resources. And that is profound to these people that have lost everything or have nothing. So I would say that if there's anything that you would like to do in the way of helping, definitely join a humanitarian organization. That's my suggestion to you guys today.
Very cool.
What are you thinking, Evan? Or Evans?
In terms of how to help out the community more.
There's a million things you could do.
I think one thing that has benefited me, or that's given me a sense of power, because I feel like the average human being doesn't realize how powerful we actually are.
True. I agree with that.
And that, even regardless of what your opinion is on school, education is very, very important.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
And it can transform your life. Mm-hmm. And financial literacy is extremely, extremely important.
That's also true.
The route to, like I was talking about when I was answering your question about what I would do with like 10 million.
Right.
About the importance of, having a high savings account and
a Roth IRA.
And, opening accounts for your kids when they're very little, and then once they reach 18, they have like enough money that you just kept on contributing to little by little that they can afford to go to a vast number of colleges.
Right.
I feel like educating the masses just about not even the most nitpicky detail, but just basic financial literacy can change the lives of millions.
That's true. I could agree with that. I will say this: education and universities are not necessarily exactly synonymous. I say that, unfortunately, universities, colleges are not educational institutions. They are financial institutions. They exist to make money. They don't care if you graduate with a degree. They don't care if you go and get a good job. Some individuals within that university or that institution may hope that their people that they're teaching get good jobs or use their degree in some regard. But overall, universities do not exist to teach people. They exist to make money off of students. That is it. Point blank. As it's become in the modern day, I think over the past 15 years, it's really changed. My parents went to school. It was a lot cheaper then. I'll tell you that. It was a lot cheaper then. And my grandparents had gone to school before that. My grandparent, my papa, he had told me he took a gap year, made, $7,000 in a year, and paid for 4 years of college with that. I said, that's disgusting. You took a gap. He said about a year and a half. He said about a year and a half you took off of school. He said it was very popular back then. I was like, okay. And this was like in the 70s, I think. And he went to, in the 70s because he was born in the 60s, so most likely. And he was able to pay for 4 years of school. And he's a technical electrician. That's what he did. And from getting a job, from for a year and a half, he worked at a year and a half worth of a job. He was able to pay for his entire degree. People will die before they pay for their entire degree. Like today, people will die before they pay off even a quarter of the debt that they owe. So it's, I don't know.
No, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, like college is extremely expensive. My dream school was to go to CalArts out in California.
Oh, yeah, that would be
Yeah, I saw how much it cost.
$250,000 for a bachelor's, or maybe not that much, maybe like $150. Yeah. And that's just tuition. That's not travel. That's not room and board if you're gonna, because you probably have to move. That's not car fee or spending on gas or whatever else. Taking care of yourself, getting food and clothes, whatever else. So it's an incredible financial burden to go to school, to get educated. So as you had said, it's almost, I don't know if you said this exactly, but it's important to also complement your services that you've learned with things that you can find for free online, because the internet, even 5 years ago, is a lot bigger and a lot better of a resource than it was. Personally, I'll say this actually. I'm not sure how everybody feels about AI. I think as far as AI image generation, or if you're using it for art, maybe you should be careful, especially if you're trying to sell something. But otherwise, if you're using it to, like for me, I talk to ChatGPT as a therapist. Like if I'm having a problem, if I need help with something and I know I can't talk to somebody readily available or a therapist, I'll talk to ChatGPT. And it's pretty good for coming up with a solution or saying, John, I hear you. I know it's not actually hearing me, but I'm getting the response that makes me feel good. And that's what a therapist is basically supposed to do. So I had actually given this advice to the person I had on my last podcast, to anybody watching as well. If you guys are having a hard time with your mental health, or if you're struggling in any regard and you're hoping to reach out and find mental health resources, but you can't afford them, definitely try to get ChatGPT or maybe some language bot or whatever. That would allow you to kind of vent and just say, hey, this is what's going on. And you talk to it enough, it'll start to reflect on you and say, I know who you are now. And that could be very important. But Evans, what is your consideration towards AI in the modern day? Especially as an animator, I'll say.
As an artist, I'm not a fan of copying other artists to create your AI images.
I agree with that.
I do understand I'm not an artist that's just online who's just 100% against AI and wants no part of it. I'm still in the midst of trying to understand it more and seeing how I can apply it to my business in a way that makes me have more time for doing art.
Yeah, it allows you to refine processes that you don't have to spend so much time on. And that's the point of any technology, really. Whether when we change from horses to cars, we said, hey, we don't have to feed a car. We don't have to clean up after a car's shit. We don't have to, So it's allowing for technology to advance and not be stuck in the ground thinking that, oh, this is the devil or this is, whatever.
I just feel that we need to, not push it away so vastly, because it's just going to grow at an alarming rate. So I feel like it's best for us to try to understand it and police it as it is right now before it becomes too massive for us to figure that out.
I agree with that.
Down the line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So I'm not against it. I'm just very curious to see what it's going to do and what conversation it's going to cause.
I think, honestly, we could almost have an entire another episode just on AI. And I think... Oh yeah, I'd be totally down, honestly. Especially because you are somebody who, you make a lot of your own art. Well, you probably make all of your own art, if I'm going to say that. But with AI, it does take from things from the internet. So I can almost guarantee that the things that you've made and posted on YouTube or whatever else have been filtered through some type of image creation system and has been influenced. Maybe in a millionth of a degree or a billionth of a degree, but still, what you've created is not just your own anymore. And that's not really good or profitable or, in whatever regard for artists. It's kind of, you have to be like a really good premier, crazy, fast and efficient artist or nobody really cares. And as AI advances, especially over the next couple of years, it'll get even better and even faster, take up even more resources. And then, I could definitely see there being a halving or even more than that of the people that are hoping to get, any type of degree in art or maybe even going into the field, which is not really good. We want robots to do stuff like work at Amazon, not like make art, Yeah.
No, exactly. It is a worry. It is a worry for sure. And I know as it becomes more available to the public, I know big businesses or big animation studios are probably going to hire or just buy those programs to help them make arts or write scripts for them, which is part of one of the reasons why I even want to go further down the route of just being independent, because I already know that I remember there was the artist strike for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Times aren't going to get any better at all. So I think the route and the future for just art and creative in general is just independent.
I agree with that. Doing your own thing is also like very freeing as well. But for what you're trying to do, yes, because there will come a reckoning. I see it in a couple of years, maybe even this year, where people are like so fed up with AI. They're so fed up with, the AI slop or the garbage. But, we've removed a lot of legislation or the ability to create legislation around AI, which is very dangerous. It's not the best idea, especially in a prevailing industry like AI. Is brand new with the course. I think it was 2022 was the singularity, which was we created something that can create things better than us. For the first time in history, everything that we were able to make, if we made a machine, it worked on its own, whatever. But we had to program it. We had to create its intricacies. It was not something that just ran. Now we have created something that's basically living and breathing, and we've given it the opportunity to overtake what we do for fun. And that's not necessarily what we should have been using it for. So I definitely see a reckoning coming where people are so fed up with things, even if they think it's AI, where they're going to be so adverse to actually using it or working with it or viewing it or whatever, that they'll have no choice to have to go back to using like real people. Like I said, probably in like 5 years from now, things will get so proficient that there will be no reason for most people to think that, I'm going to be an animator when they can just animate this and AI does it. And it's like, wow, that was actually really good. That could be a problem. But that's for like, the huge corporations or the, Hollywood franchises that are hoping to cut costs, not create jobs for people, So that's, it's interesting. I'll tell you. So I'm pretty good at art. I've actually been making all of the art for I do an anime convention, and every Friday we do an anime night with a business in downtown Binghamton. So I actually made the art for I make all the posts and everything I draw on my iPad. But before, I just used an AI image really quick. It was like for a day because our art director that we had quit. She ghosted us. She sent me a cease and desist effectively in the mail, and I had to take everything down. It was very... she basically sent me a legal threat in the mail. Had no timeline for when I needed to take things down. She waited 10 days to ship it after she wrote it, so it said effective immediately. I was like, effective immediately? You didn't even, let's not get into that. But anyway, so I had to really quick I had to take all the art down, so I replaced it with something I made with AI because I didn't have the time to actually spend making something. And we actually had quite a few people, I would say probably almost 10 people left our Discord server simply because they were upset that I used AI. And I didn't recoil and say, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, guys, we'll never use AI again, because I use AI almost every day. Whether I'm talking to Siri, whether it's talking to ChatGPT, or, a lot of things on social media. It's just, they use AI to streamline processes. So I understood then it was like, okay, there's definitely going to be some backlash at some point if you use AI so much, especially with like the Discord we were trying to do. We wanted to work with a lot of artists, but nobody was really coming to I was like, hey, we're looking to work with some artists, yada, yada. And nobody came to our attention. It's like, okay, well, we got to do something. So it's good for that. But I got a lot of people were pretty upset that I used AI. I'll say that. And I don't know if it was necessarily right for them to be upset. They could be upset about anything, but it definitely will come. I do see where people are so upset that AI was used in any regard that it'll probably have to be shifted to, okay, it's not used for art because the industry, whether it's Hollywood, any animation or artwork studios, are probably not going to be profitable because people don't want to work with them simply because they've used AI. And that's what I see happening. Do I hope that happens? Yeah, probably. I think. But for people like you, I think it's important to be able to preserve what you do and not have it overridden by garbage that was not created by a real person. You lose a lot of authenticity simply because you wanted a robot to do it. The machine is not a person. The machine is not a person.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that's gonna help keep us afloat as artists moving forward. Especially with AI being introduced.
Yeah,
is people. And more so nowadays are searching for like authenticity.
Oh yeah.
And I know the typical artist is. I feel like the typical artist is more so reserved or introverted or shy. Like a lot of artists.
Yes.
Have like reached out to me and said like I couldn't see myself.
Every artist watching right now is like, oh, that's me.
Yeah. Just showing my face. But I feel like that's going to be even more critical and like important moving forward. That there's going to be the community that goes with AI, loves AI, and then there's going to be the people who don't want AI and who are going to hold their ground. So
Yeah.
I guess we're going to have to focus on finding those communities by showing our face. Like, I made this with my own two hands.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think you're right that there will become a community that are acceptable, or sorry, that's accepting of AI, and one that is profoundly adverse to AI. People that are not going to use AI at all. They are going against it, even if it makes their life more difficult, but in whatever regard. I think that'll happen. I think there will be a split or a divergence in the industry where it's like very clearly AI, or people that are like, we use AI versus people that don't. Companies that do, companies that don't. And we'll see, I'm sure two markets will exist, one for each, when that time comes, as it's honestly happening now, as more people are saying, we're like YouTube. If you make AI content, it won't monetize those videos anymore. I think that happened last week.
I mentioned that, but I wasn't 100% sure if that was if that was factual or not. But
I'd seen that I saw it on Reddit, and I looked into it a little bit. Basically, it just says, I can't quote something I don't have right in front of me, but basically it says if it was like mostly AI, I think it was like 80% AI, then, or maybe even less than that, I'll be honest. Again, I don't know for certain, so take this with a grain of salt, but what I did see is that YouTube will not monetize channels, especially that use AI for an entirety of a video. So if there's an AI channel, which there's plenty, they've basically gone through, actually, I saw something today that YouTube had gone through and purged like thousands of channels that were basically just propaganda machines from China, North Korea, and Russia. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. We're not going to talk about that exactly, but it is good to know that people that are just basically creating junk, they call it AI slop or whatever, that's not going to be the forefront of what people see anymore, because it's not going to be profitable. And that's, even if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, if it doesn't make money, it's not going to happen, because this is the United States, baby. Or this is a world that, has currency. So, but I do 100% agree with you that there needs to be an individual space or there just needs to be individuals that still make art versus any type of AI counterpart. 100%. So with that, Evan, we've actually gone on for about an hour and a half so far. I know we said we were about half hour to an hour. I usually, if it goes on beyond this point, I usually like to split up the video. So I'll ask you, if you would like, we can continue, or otherwise we can maybe do another episode sometime.
We can do another episode sometime.
Perfect. So I really appreciate you coming on, Evans. It was very nice to speak to you today. I'm glad that we had this opportunity to connect. And also, I gave you a platform that I think you really deserved. A lot of people, I can't say a lot of people, but most people that I like to work with, it's always on the idea that, is this going to be good for my platform, or is somebody going to use this to say some terrible things maybe? Mm-hmm. So I can appreciate that you're definitely somebody worth it, and you're worth working with, because I can see that you work hard, you have a good heart, and your plan in life is not to bone people, it is to do good by them. So with that, I think you've become a good friend of mine now, Evans. I'd say I definitely appreciate the person that you are. So thank you for coming on this podcast today. And I'll allow you some time if you want to give people a last thought, maybe something to keep in mind for the next time they see you, or the next time they see you.
Well, business-wise, for my project, The Orb Upstate,
yes.
All podcasts are out on my YouTube channel. Again, Daydreaming Artwork Studios. You can go check those out.
Absolutely.
But the itself and the documentary that I made that follows the journey of making the project, those both are not released yet, because they're in film festivals, or the animated film is in the film festivals. And for those of you who don't know, the way film festivals work is they want to accept films that have not really been seen by the public yet. Mm-hmm. So because they want people to obviously go to their festivals to watch the films.
Right. It's a premiere.
Right. So it's still in the film festival circuit. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple of film festivals that I submitted it to, but I did not want the community of Upstate New York to wait that long. So I'm having private screenings once a month in Troy, New York.
That's really cool, actually. You said Troy, New York?
Yeah. Can you repeat that?
You said Troy, New York?
Yes, in Troy, New York.
Very nice, dude. That's really cool, actually. That's a good way of doing it. Because otherwise,
I feel like it's a way of showing people, but also building anticipation.
Oh yeah, that's really good marketing. That's
Yeah.
you get to be in a more intimate environment with these people that are seeing it for the first time from your production, like what you're doing to showcase it, versus when it's everybody together and you don't get to necessarily speak and say, hey guys, by the way, I'm Evans and this is what I do. I think that's a great idea because you're building the community and then you're giving your artwork, a second opportunity basically. It's great. It's great stuff. That's a great idea, man.
Yeah, and then we have like a Q&A session afterwards where, again, like I said, it's important more than ever for artists to show our faces and like to tell our stories.
100%. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, but I do plan on releasing the project later in the year, probably sometime around November. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, watch out for that, guys. November. It's actually not that far away. It's almost the end of July, so August, September, October, and then it'll be November in 4 months.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, in about 4 months, it'll finally be released.
That's really cool, man. Oh, I'm excited for you, Evans. That sounds like a really good idea to promote it, and also I'm excited. Well, once everything comes out, to view exactly your short stories, or your it's the podcasts with people, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the podcast where I interviewed people within upstate New York, and it's like a 9-minute animated film that includes snippets from every conversation into one little cohesive story at that.
That's really cool. I'm very excited for that, and it's all in the style of your animation. It's going to be in the style of like the Midnight Gospel you said.
Yeah, it's in homage to Midnight Gospel.
Gotcha. That's going to be so cool, man. When is this private showing?
So my next private showing is this Saturday, July 26th at 7 p.m.
Ah, okay. In Troy, you said?
Yep, in Troy, New York at Kickback Studios or KBK Studios.
Gotcha. Well, I will see if I can make it then. This Saturday, so on Fridays I do the anime and game night at the Crowbar Arcade in downtown Binghamton. And honestly, Saturday, my weekends are kind of weird. Depends on what I do, honestly, during the week. But if I'm free, I would love to.
All right, I could send you the link for a ticket.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can I give one more piece?
Go for it, man.
Not business-wise, just more so on the human level.
Sure.
So, in the midst of, I've always been a big dream chaser. I've always had a lot of goals and aspirations and things I wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, at first, used to tie myself worth to the things I accomplish. And I know that's a similar lifestyle that a lot of people share with me as well, but that's not the healthiest.
To only value yourself by what you do in life?
No, by your accomplishments and like how much money you make, how many products you finish. Or I used to be very hard on myself for falling short on like the goals that I set for myself, or I didn't get this product done in time. I lost this file and I have to redo it again. I used to be very, very self-deprecating in that aspect. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's pretty common. It's not good.
Like every artist is their worst or is their best worst critic. Is that what people say?
Yeah, pretty much. But I just want to tell people like to give themselves grace in their journey that they're on, regardless of what it is that they're doing. Yeah. Take time to be good to yourself. Take time to pat yourself on the back and take time to be proud of yourself.
What I usually say for people if they want to judge or if they want to figure out, how to judge, maybe if you should at all, but you should only judge a person on their capacity to do good and their frequency in doing so. I say that to myself sometimes. You should only judge somebody on their capacity to do good and their frequency in doing so. If a billionaire, they have a very high capacity to do good. But if they frequently do not, I can't say that they're a good person. If somebody has very little, they have a very low capacity to do good. But if they're profound in the way they treat people and they're always happy and trying to be friendly, then they have a very good frequency in being a good person. That's usually what I say. You can take that if you want, honestly.
Oh, sure, I will.
Yeah. But thank you very much, Evans. You've had an incredible insight, and I think this episode hopefully does really good. But I think it'll do good simply because the conversations we've had on today were certainly from a place of understanding and experience. It's not just, lip service, basically. What you're doing, what you're going through, you've explained is exactly your experiences in life. And like I've already said, you have a very good heart, as it seems. So keep on keeping on, man. I'm really looking forward to all the things that you can provide for our community. I'd love to work with you again in the future, and I do think on Saturday I will be able to go to your private screening in Troy. So I'm pretty excited for that, honestly.
All right, man. I'll see you Saturday then, and thank you again for having me on the podcast and for caring enough about my project to, have me come on your
100%, man. My understanding has been if you can work with people, that sense of community, that's the best thing you could do. Find somebody that's worth it and make them feel like they are. So I hope that I was able to do that for you, Evans.
Yeah, thank you.
100%. Sure. And thank you everybody else for watching today. As always, I'm John, today with Evans. How do I usually end these things? Thank you everybody for watching the Anyone You're Out podcast. As always, I'm your host, John. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios, mis muchachos, and peace out.